The Hong Kong Film Studio, Stage 7 of the Shaw Brothers Complex, Clearwater Bay. March of 1991. The shooting day had begun at 6:30 in the morning. By 9, the principals were already moving through warm-ups at the edge of the main set, where the lighting rigs cast long shadows across a floor of polished hardwood that had been dressed to look like a Beijing courtyard. 41 crew members occupied the space. A camera dolly sat idle on its track. The catering tables along the east wall had been cleared to make room for additional equipment. The air inside the soundstage carried the particular smell of industrial lighting and fresh lacquer. Donnie Yen was 28 years old that morning. He stood 5 feet 8 inches and weighed 162 pounds of bone and trained muscle. He had begun formal wushu training at the age of 11 under his mother, Bao Sim Mark, herself a practitioner of international standing. By 16, he had relocated to Beijing to study at the Beijing Wushu team. By 19, he had returned to Hong Kong, where he had already appeared in 3 films. By 28, he had developed a reputation that extended well beyond his resume. Tournament judges in Beijing, fight coordinators in Los Angeles, and the senior stunt crews in Hong Kong knew his name and what it meant. He moved differently from other martial artists on set. There was an economy to his footwork, a precision in the way he returned to his base after each demonstration combination. His coordinator would later say that watching Donnie Yen throw a sidekick was like watching a watchmaker set a gear. Nothing wasted. Nothing imprecise. He had earned everything he carried. That morning, he was demonstrating a sequence for the benefit of the assistant director. The sequence called for 3 strikes, a sweep and a hold. He threw it 8 times at full speed. Each repetition was identical. The 8th was indistinguishable from the first. The crew had seen this quality of performance before. On this particular set, it was not remarkable. It was expected. Chuck Norris arrived at the soundstage at 9:47. He came through the side entrance, the one that opened from the equipment storage corridor. He wore street clothes. A denim jacket, the collar turned up on one side and flat on the other. Dark trousers. Shoes that had not been selected for the day's work. He carried nothing. He was 51 years old. He was not large. He did not move quickly. He crossed the floor toward the production table where the morning's schedule was laid out, and he did not look at anyone in particular as he walked. He was 6 years removed from his final theatrical release in the United States. He was 9 years past his last competitive fight. His beard had gone the color of birch bark. There was a slight deliberateness to how he placed each step, the unhurried quality of a man who had decided long ago that speed was not the same thing as urgency. Most people in that soundstage had seen Chuck Norris films. They had watched him on screens. The person who walked through that side entrance looked different from the person they had seen on those screens, in the way that all real things look different from their representations. He was smaller. He was quieter. He was unremarkable in the way that very few remarkable people manage to be. Donnie Yen finished his sequence and turned toward the newcomer. The assistant director made an introduction. Hands were shaken. A brief exchange followed about the schedule, about the day's requirements, about a technical problem with one of the camera mounts that still needed attention. Then the conversation shifted. It shifted in the way that conversations among martial artists often shift when they are in a space designed for physical work, surrounded by people who understand physical work. Donnie Yen said something about the sequence he had been rehearsing.
He said something about approach, about philosophy, about what the difference was between what he had been trained to do and what other systems produced. He was not being unkind. He was being precise. He was a young man who had been trained to be precise. He said, "Your karate does not work here." He said it without raising his voice.
He said it the way a technician might describe a system incompatibility. He did not smile when he said it. He meant it as an observation. 22 people were within hearing distance. The camera operator, whose name was Raymond, would describe the moment 3 years later to a journalist as the specific silence that falls when something has been said that cannot be unsaid. The boom operator had been adjusting his rig above and slightly to the left. He stopped adjusting it. The assistant director looked at his clipboard. Chuck Norris did not respond immediately. He stood where he was standing. He was still holding the cup of coffee that someone had handed him at the production table. He looked at Donnie Yen for a moment. He set the coffee down on the edge of the equipment dolly beside him. He removed his denim jacket. He folded it once, lengthwise, and set it down flat on top of the coffee. He did not roll his shoulders. He did not stretch. He did not shift his weight or establish a stance or perform any of the preparatory rituals that signal readiness in a martial artist. He simply said, "Show me." If you have been watching this channel and you have not yet subscribed, do it now before we go any further, because what happened in the next 41 seconds inside Stage 7 of the Shaw Brothers complex is the reason this story has been told in dojos from Kowloon to Toronto for more than 3 decades. Subscribe and tell us in the comments what country you are watching from. He had already lost. He just did not know it yet. The crew felt it before they understood it. There is a particular quality of attention that changes the atmosphere of a room when something is about to happen that cannot be rehearsed. The lighting technician near the east wall would say later that he had felt it at the back of his neck. The dolly operator, a man named Francis who had been on film sets for 19 years, set his hands flat on the dolly frame and did not move them again until it was over. Donnie Yen moved first. He was fast. This is not an embellishment or a courtesy. He was among the fastest strikers working in Hong Kong at that moment. And the people in that room knew it because they had watched him work for 3 hours that morning. What he threw first was a front kick, straight and economical, aimed at the center of Chuck Norris's torso. It came without announcement, without the telegraphing of weight transfer that precedes most techniques. It was the technique of someone who had been trained by serious people and had taken that training seriously. It arrived at empty space. Chuck Norris had moved to the outside, 4 inches to the right, and the kick passed through where his center line had been. He had not stepped back. He had not blocked. He had not parried. He had relocated to a position from which the kick posed no threat, and the relocation had occurred at a moment so early in the kick's development that it appeared, to most of the witnesses, that he had simply not been there when the kick departed. The distance between them was now 31 inches. A fight is not about 2 men striking each other. A fight is a negotiation about distance. Every fighter in that room that morning understood this in the abstract. What they were watching was someone who understood it in a different and more complete way. Chuck Norris had not retreated from the kick. He had restructured the distance between them so that the kick was irrelevant before it was finished. He had done this without apparent effort. He had done it without hurry. Second 3. Donnie Yen did not pause. He converted immediately from the missed front kick into a lateral movement and threw a combination, a jab, a cross, aimed at the head. The jab was a true jab, not a rangefinder, not a probe. It carried weight and intent. The cross behind it was committed and fast. The jab met a forearm, not a block, not a catch. A forearm that was already in the position required to redirect it with minimal structural conflict. The cross met nothing. Chuck Norris had moved his head 4 inches to the outside and the cross tracked across empty air to his left. The distance between them was now 22 inches. He had moved closer. He had closed the gap while Donnie Yen's combination was still in progress. And he was now inside a range at which the combination could not continue. Raymond, the camera operator, would later say that he had watched a great deal of sparring in his life, on set and off it, and that the geometry of what he had just seen was unlike any geometry he had observed before. He said it quietly, to the person standing beside him. He did not say it loudly. Second 7. Donnie Yen rotated and threw a spinning back kick. This was his strongest weapon. The stunt coordinator had seen him use it in demonstrations and in choreographed sequences and on 2 occasions in actual competition. It was a weapon that ended discussions. It generated a great deal of force. It arrived from an unexpected angle. And it was fast enough that most trained fighters could not reliably defend it. Chuck Norris slipped it by rotating his hips 40 degrees and stepping inside its arc. He was now 12 inches from Donnie Yen. He was inside every weapon the younger man possessed. He was at the range that rendered speed irrelevant because there was no longer enough distance to generate it. He raised his right hand slowly, the way a man raises his hand to make a point in a conversation rather than to strike, and he brought it to within 1 inch of the side of Donnie Yen's jaw. He held it there. He did not complete the strike. He held the position for 2 seconds. Then he lowered his hand. He stepped back 3 feet. He looked at Donnie Yen without expression. His breathing had not changed. The room was silent for 4 seconds. The assistant director later described those 4 seconds as the longest 4 seconds he had experienced on any film set in his career, and he said this to at least 6 people over the following decade, and he never changed the account. Donnie Yen stood where he was standing. Chuck Norris extended his right hand. The handshake lasted approximately 3 seconds. Then Chuck Norris leaned forward and said something to Donnie Yen that only Donnie Yen could hear. The witnesses nearest to them, Raymond and the boom operator and a makeup artist named Grace, who had come to the edge of the set when the conversation began, could not make out the words. The distance was too great, and the words were too quiet. What they could see was Donnie Yen's face while he heard them. His expression did not collapse. His expression changed in the way that a face changes when it has received information it had not anticipated, and is processing that information without the performance of processing it. The change was small. It was genuine. He stood at the fork in the road that every man stands at when the story he has been telling about himself encounters something that contradicts it. He could take the left branch, which was the branch of explanation, of context, of careful reframing. He could take the right branch. He took the right branch. He said, "You are right. I was wrong to say that." He said this to the room, not to the floor. He said it clearly and without qualification. Several of the crew members present would repeat these words verbatim for years afterward, because they had been said with a specific quality of honesty that is not performed and cannot be manufactured. Francis, the dolly operator, put his hand briefly on Chuck Norris's shoulder as he passed on his way back to the production table. The gesture lasted less than a second. It was not deliberate. It was the involuntary gesture of a man confirming that something real had occurred. Chuck Norris retrieved his jacket from the top of the equipment dolly. He retrieved his coffee. The coffee had gone cold. He drank it anyway. He sat down at the production table and looked at the day's schedule. The story left that soundstage the same day it was made. The stunt coordinator mentioned it to a colleague at a lunch meeting the following week. Raymond told it to 2 directors he knew in London during a production trip. Grace, the makeup artist, told it at a dinner in Kowloon and watched it travel around a table of 8 people and come back to her with 2 details already altered. By the time it reached the competitive circuits in Northern California, one version of the story had the duration at 7 seconds and another had it at 90. One version had a third party present who had not been there. One version contained a quote that no witness had recorded. Oral history is not a recording. It is a living thing, and living things grow and shed parts of themselves as they move. But the frame of the story held in every version, across every revision, through every distortion that time and distance and the human love of drama apply to it. The frame held because frames built on true things hold. A young man with everything to prove made a claim about what worked and what did not, in public, in front of witnesses, in a room designed for the performance of physical skill. An older man answered the claim in the only language that settles such questions. And the young man, when the answer was delivered, did not look for the left branch. That is the rarer story. Anyone can be humbled. What is rare is a man who meets humility without making it into something other than what it is. Donnie Yen went on to become one of the most technically rigorous and widely respected martial artists in the history of Hong Kong cinema. He became a student of multiple disciplines. He trained seriously and without the kind of certainty that had spoken in Stage 7 on that March morning in 1991. People who worked with him in the years that followed noted a particular quality he brought to set, a willingness to be shown something new, a curiosity that had no ceiling. Chuck Norris left that soundstage at the end of the day and did not tell this story to anyone. He never told it. The story traveled without him, the way the best stories do. The man who wins does not need to carry the account forward. The account carries itself. What a man demonstrates in an unscheduled moment, without cameras recording and without anything at stake beyond the truth of what he knows, is the only biography that matters. Everything else is what he has said about himself. The 41 seconds in Stage 7 of the Shaw Brothers complex was not what Chuck Norris said about himself. It was what he was. There is a difference. Most people never close that gap. The ones who do tend not to announce it. Next time, we will go inside the afternoon in Torrance, California, when a United States Marine Corps instructor walked into Chuck Norris's dojo and told the class that what they were being taught would get them killed. Stay subscribed to find out what happened in the following 3 minutes and leave a comment below telling us what city you are in tonight. Claude is AI and can make mistakes.